Hey folks, today I'm going to give you a little bit of a trick, for the lack of a better term, using moving averages. And you can do this trick using moving averages, simple ones or exponential ones. It doesn't really matter. But it turns out that a lot of people are not aware of a really basic thing about moving averages, and that has to do, when does a moving average become support, or in this case, what I'm going to focus on is overhead resistance. And so I brought up a chart here of a stock. This happens to be PayPal, PYPL, just as an example, a stock that's been strongly trending, as you can see, for many years. Now, a lot of people have a hard time understanding and putting moving average in the right context. I see a lot of people, particularly newer folks, and that makes sense, of course, with a little bit less experience, will tend to use sort of a moving average as like a holy grail, and that is a pretty bad mistake, but of course you'll learn pretty quickly. So I'm going to just give you a couple of points in time here on the chart that I think are important to note. Now, I'm going to leave out this example here, which was the sharp COVID rebound, so lockdown in 2020 and then rebound. So I'm going to take this as an anomaly, but even here, it's actually what I'm about to show you applies. So let's just take another example, maybe a little bit prior to there. Let's maybe focus on this point in time here, where you can see, and I have a bunch of moving averages on here that are real straightforward. I have a 200-day moving average in red. I have a 150-day moving average in teal. I have the blue one is 100-day moving average, and then the yellow one is the 50-day. These are standard moving averages. I happen to like these because they form sort of a band of support and resistance together. I like to use that optically. It gives me a good idea of kind of where price is moving broadly. But what a lot of people seem to be trained for is, again, let's forget the COVID V-shaped rebound for a minute, but let's focus on a more standard sort of break of moving averages like here or here. And you can see price ended up breaking below all these moving averages, the 50-day, the 100-day, the 200-day, and so on and so forth. But as soon as, after a little bit of chopping, the moving averages ended up being pretty useless in the broad sense as offering resistance. And so what I think is really important to understand is that real resistance for moving averages in the case of strong uptrends doesn't really come in if the moving averages, and again, I'm focusing on the ones that I'm pointing out here, are all pointing lower for more than just a couple of weeks or so. And you can see here, not all of them, just a couple of the more shorter ones were actually pointing down. And quite frankly, even here at the COVID rebound, you can see it wasn't really a sharp sort of decline in moving averages, like they're not really turning lower. So they weren't really offering a lot of resistance. But if you zoom into where we are right now on the chart, what you can see is that the moving averages, all of them, not just the short ones, even the long ones like a 200-day, they're all pointing lower. And of course, that is just a function of the stock having dropped quite a bit and for quite an extended period of time, like at least a few months. So what you're going to look at now is you have a lot of layers of resistance. Pretty much all these moving averages will offer some resistance, even if it's just for a while, here and then here and here. And so the tendency for a moving average in this case to offer more meaningful resistance than here when they're breaking below it, and the moving averages for the most part were basically flat to even still upward sloping, the tendency for this to offer resistance is much, much higher. So very simply put, to kind of summarize this, if you're going to use moving averages as resistance, and that's specifically the example here, make sure that if it's an uptrend, broadly speaking, that they're all pointing lower, and then you have a higher probability of those moving averages offering you points of resistance. And so that's it's a very simple trick, but I found out that a lot of people actually are not really using that little trick, if you will, when they use moving averages. Hope it helps. We'll see you again soon.